And our next guest, interned right here at BronxNet for some time. I think that was 100 years ago. No, it was a few years back. And they're here to discuss about 6 years, and they're here to discuss their film, Access Democracy in a Digital Age. I tell you, it's coming. It's here. Please welcome Anthony Saldana and Jason Figueira. We welcome you guys to the show. It's a pleasure to see you guys. And thanks for doing your work with the Make the Grade Foundation, too.
No problem.
No problem.
Now, you guys have a new project. Tell us about that.
That's right.
Well, it's called Access Democracy in a Digital Age, and it's about public access television. It gives a whole comprehensive history of how it started, and it really talks about the fundamental crisis that it faced in 2005 when public access was up against the phone companies. The phone companies wanted to break into the cable game, and but they didn't want to play by the rules.
Somebody's always trying to break in and change the rules.
Very true.
Now, tell us about that. What is access, and how did they try to change the rules?
Well, what happened is that the rules were that cable companies had to pay for a minimum of 4 channels for public access television. Phone companies didn't want to do that. So what happened was they tried to pass a law nationally through the House and Senate stating that companies would no longer have to pay for public access television. And that would include cable companies. Well, it got stalled. So then they had another idea. They decided to go state by state.
All these big ideas. Go ahead. They went state by state
and tried to get rid of public access television in terms of going to state governments, whining and dining politicians, going through those motions. And finally, in some states, they got laws passed where now companies don't have to pay for public access stations. So now cable companies were exempt from those, and so were phone companies. And that left a lot of public access stations defunded. Some couldn't afford their equipment, and others had to close permanently. Producers woke up one morning and they found a lock on the door.
Wow.
Which was pretty harsh.
And how did we overcome that?
Well, public access decided to have a fight in 2008.
In the middle of the ring.
Yeah. After all that was going on, public access went to Capitol Hill, and there were a couple representatives who had hearings, and they had Michael Maxnabi was one of them. BronxNet who runs BronxNet, went and defended public access, and defended that rule that should be maintained. Phone companies have to pay for public access stations. They shouldn't have gone through their backdoor deals to try and get rid of public access. So now that fight is still continuing today, and some stations remain closed. And I remember talking to one producer in Los Angeles, and she said, let me tell you something, public access in Los Angeles is dead. D-E-A-D.
Right.
Dead. So what happens is that some stations have been forced to shut down, some stations have been defunded, but there is some good news. Some stations have actually improved their relationship with their cable companies and have actually gotten more money. Some have gotten more channels, and I know that M&N recently got a new firehouse.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, they're improving.
So there's some good things about it.
Yep.
So the fight continues, though.
They could also work together online, I think. Have shows be available online. Now you can see shows from Queens Public Television anywhere in the world through YouTube. So while people might think that online could kill public access television, I think they can work together to actually grow.
Because they said that about radio too. They said with cable, regular television and regular radio, it's gonna it's gonna lose a whole lot. Especially with satellite radio, that regular radio is going to lose a whole lot. But no, we're still going strong. As a matter of fact, we're number one. My show's number one. Steve Harvey Morning Show's number one. We're doing well. So it does, I think it can or will not hinder what's going on with the public access right now or the way you do business. So you guys have been working on this project for about 4 years.
Yes.
Yep.
While we were working on We're Ordinary People, Jason was working on this project.
I spent quite a while building my relationship with public access producers, and one of them was Drinking with Bob. I filmed 2 producers from Queens, Bob Thompson, who does that show Drinking with Bob, and Andrew Bauman, who does Spotlight Autism. And they're both wonderful shows, and they're really reflective of public access producers today. Bob does his ranting into the camera, and Andrew Bauman talks about autism in families, how to support, how do families raise autistic children.
So, but you wanted you wanted people to learn what about the project that you're working on?
I wanted people to learn why public access television was so important, why it's important to defend. And I wanted to give people a sense of the gravity of the situation that they were facing in terms of the phone companies, what had been done to them, and their First Amendment rights. And that's really what's important, is protecting the First Amendment in all its ways, shapes, and forms. So basically, what I want people to walk away with is a sense of saying, well, you know what, I have a First Amendment right, and public access is there to enhance my First Amendment.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to defend.
I think there's a misconception that public access can be like the underground television where, you know, it's not mainstream, so it's not that great. But public access television, at least personally for me, gave me an opportunity to learn the craft. So I think there's multiple possibilities here on this station as well as many others throughout the country.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if this wasn't here.
Exactly.
Because internet TV wasn't really there yet. I mean, a lot of people can practice up at home with internet television, but public access to come and display your talents and have access to what's going on in your community, and to, you know, get that reflective, projective thing going on. What's seen in society is projected on TV. You know, that whole thing.
Right.
You heard of that. So where do you guys go from here?
Well, Jason developed OCD while he was finishing the project.
So,
OCD.
Obsessive compulsive disorder. So I had an aggressive form of OCD, and it really hindered me from doing a lot of things in life. And I lived with that for almost a year. It's going to be almost a year now. So I decided to do a film about OCD. Aggressive OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder.
And tell us about what that is.
Well, it's an anxiety disorder where you have rituals and you become a slave to those rituals. You know, that's the simplest way of putting it. For example, if you have a certain way of walking off a mat, let's say some people walk off a red mat, they have to walk off with their right foot last.
And you were noticing and aware of all those things that you needed to do.
Yes. And if you break that, your anxiety goes up. Something is going to happen, something bad is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That sense of danger starts to come out. And people would go back and walk on the mat all over again. And that's what I would do.
So how did you know you were suffering from this?
Well, it came very slowly. It came incrementally. First, it was a mat. Then it started to affect me in terms of turning on electrical equipment, lights, for example. I began counting. I began going back and checking my door, even to see if it was locked. Even though I had locked it, I would go back 3 times. I could be halfway around the block, and the urge would be so strong where I'd say, okay, I have to stop, walk all the way back to my house, and check the door.
Our hangouts would be very interesting.
Oh, yeah. Why? What did you notice?
Oh, he just would be out of it, and he's like, I'm like, are you okay? He said, I don't know, man, I don't know. So it was, he wasn't himself. But I think it'll be a really interesting film.
So but what did you do from there to get help?
Well, what I went to do is I went to Mount Sinai, and I had a doctor talk to me. He did something called a Y box. And that's how he determined how my OCD was aggressive, how aggressive it was. The Y box is a bunch of questions they ask you, like, for example, how often do you think about your rituals and things like that? How much time do they consume? How much sleep are you losing on it? Things like that. And what they do is they determine on a scale of 1 to 30 how aggressive it is. I was like a 24. And
you were up there.
I was up there.
Yes, he was.
And so what happened was, after they determined that, then they say, well, you have to make a decision. They put me on medication, and they said, do you want something called cognitive behavioral therapy? And I said, well, at first I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know.
It changed my way of thinking and all that stuff.
And I eventually accepted it, and I don't regret it to this day. I've improved. In less than a year of having this, I have felt much better.
So you don't count anymore. You just count
Those
your money.
rituals are going out the window. There's no longer. I have
Beautiful.
more personal freedom than I ever did before.
Oh,
and I got to say, cognitive behavioral therapy really helps. Sometimes it doesn't help people. Their OCD is so aggressive, it doesn't help them. But people should give it a chance. I would like that film. I would like my
so
film to
decided
give
do a
people
film
that
on it.
chance.
Yeah. Good. So you're creating the awareness that a lot of people don't know that this is what's happening, but it could be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on an audio documentary about an activist by the name of Harry Weeder, and he was active in the homosexual and disabled community and brought it together. And I'm trying to get out in the public radio. Now that we've done work in public television, I was thinking about doing a radio documentary. And we're working on our 3rd episode of We're Ordinary People. We finally got to meet an artist that's visually impaired. And we brought out an HD camera, and it was really beautiful.
Oh.
And when I came here on the show 2 years ago, I didn't tell many people, but I didn't get into graduate school a few days beforehand. But I was very positive because I said, I'm going unopened. I'm doing pretty good. But I applied again, and I got into grad school. I got into your alma mater, NYT.
Oh yeah, New York Institute of Technology.
So I got to start studying again.
I got my bachelor's and master's from there. Very good. It's a good school. It's good. A lot of great professors too. That's where I got that notion, the reflective projective theory. What's seen in society is projected on TV, and what's projected on TV is reflected in society.
Right.
That was from Professor Mealy. He was there. He's no longer with us right now, but that's what
I'm looking forward to my studies there.
All right, so great, man. Congratulations to you guys. A new film. When do we see that again on BronxNet? Is it coming up soon?
Yep. My film Access Democracy in the Digital Age is coming out on Tuesday at 2 p.m., which is tomorrow.
Beautiful.
And Thursday at 4:30 p.m.
There you go. Give them a big hand, everybody. Anthony Saldana, filmmaker, along with filmmaker Jason Figueira. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Okay?
Thanks for having us.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Michelle.